Okay, and we are live.
Thank you.
So Eleanor, I heard you correctly that we have enough board members.
Yes, all board members appear to be connected.
Okay, so while we are doing for people who want to speak, while you're doing screen sharing, I do not have the option, I don't believe, to see all of the people that are on the call. So if people are raising their hands to speak, was how I was planning on doing it. But I only have 2, 4, so I have 10 people. So like I can't see, is there a way for me to?
There is, sometimes it takes, if you've probably done these.
Oh, here we go. I'm just gonna share, I'm just gonna swap with video so I can.
Yeah, sometimes you have to scroll to the second screen because there's too many people. I think can have up to 18 on one.
Yeah, but I'm gonna not look at the shared screen, I think. Oh, here we go. Okay, this is what I want. Okay. Okay, all right, perfect. Okay, so if everyone is ready to go, I'm going to call to order the May 14th. Do you want me to call to order first and then read the script?
The script is your way of calling to order. So when you ask people to identify themselves.
So you just want me to start with that?
I'm pretty sure that's how it's been going, yeah.
Okay, okay, so this is the regular May 14th, 2020 meeting of the Town of Nantucket Zoning Board of Appeals. I'm going to confirm the member access. As a preliminary matter, I'm Susan McCarthy, Chair of the Nantucket Zoning Board of Appeals. I'm going to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Lisa Botticelli.
Here.
Ed Toole.
Ed, your mic's not working.
I know he's here.
Ed,
Oh, yes, I see him. Michael O'Mara.
Here.
Kiram Koziak.
Here.
Jeff Thayer.
Here.
Mark Poor.
Here.
And Jim Mondani.
Here.
Okay. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Eleanor Antonetti.
Here.
Okay.
I'm going to mute now, so I'm not disturbing you.
Okay. Anticipated speakers on the agenda are next. Please respond in the affirmative if I call your name. And for those watching, some people may be calling in later who are later on the agenda, so they may not be here yet. So Attorney Sarah Alger for application numbers 09-20 and 11-20.
Here.
Marcia Fader, representative for application number 12-20.
Here.
Josh Posner, Rugged Scott, Beach Plum Village. Paul Haverty, Rugged Scott, Beach Plum Village.
Here.
Okay. Howard Edelman, Rugged Scott, Beach Plum Village.
I'm here. Can you see me? I don't think so, because the host has not has put me on, no video. So the host has to allow me to.
Yeah, when we get to other business, we'll put you back on video.
Thank you so much.
Okay, it'll be later in the agenda though.
Thanks.
Ruth Plandowski, Rugged Scott, Beach Plum Village. Tucker Holland, Rugged Scott, Beach Plum Village.
Present.
Okay. Chris Young, Rugged Scott, Beach Plum Village. And Peter McEachran, Rugged Scott, Beach Plum Village. Okay. Okay, and I believe Keith Yanko is joining us as well on application 09-20. Not here yet. Okay. Okay.
Are you waving, Ed? You don't know how to turn on your
Ed, if you go down to the bottom left-hand corner, can you see your mute? No? Okay. All right. Good afternoon. This open meeting of the Nantucket Zoning Board of Appeals is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings. And as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Nantucket Zoning Board of Appeals is convening by video conference via Zoom app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. For Zoom meetings, please note that this meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. As for meeting materials, all supporting materials that have been provided members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I, the chair, notes otherwise. Meeting business ground rules. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I, the chair, will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name. Okay. Hi, sorry, I'm not sure where that cut out. Meeting materials, all supporting materials have been provided members of this body and are available on the town's website unless otherwise. Oh, sorry, we are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for the effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I, the chair, will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, question, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in a conversation with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. For items with public comment, after members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment as follows. Staff will activate the chat feature on YouTube. Members of the public who have comments or questions can use this feature to communicate with the public body. Instructions are on the town website. The chair and or the staff will do their best to address questions and comments. And finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. Okay.
Madam Chair,
Sure.
Mr. Toole has notified me that he cannot speak because the master control mute and unmute is I think Eleanor's in charge of that because she.
I think it might be Andrew, but either Andrew or Eleanor, if either of you guys could try to unmute Ed, that'd be great.
I have done that. I don't think his computer actually has a microphone.
He's unmuted. I unmuted him.
We've been on Zooms before. I've been on with Ed, so he's definitely spoken before.
Oh,
And
okay.
it's not shown as mute on my control panel, so not sure.
So Ed, maybe check, I know this sounds basic, but check your volume. I don't
Did you
know.
quit and rejoin, Ed?
It's a good idea.
Sometimes
did.
that helps.
He did try that already, but we can do it.
Good.
If you could go into his audio preferences on his Zoom, there might be something there.
Susan, I have just a quick administrative question here. The share screen, how do I ensure that I'm not sharing my screen? I know there's an option here. I assume
You
I'm-
have to opt to do it. If you're not
Okay.
opting to do it, then you won't.
Okay.
Yeah,
Make-
it's down the bottom in the middle. There's like a green button with an arrow that says share screen. So if you stay away from that, you won't be sharing your screen with us.
Got it.
I just admitted Ed again. I'm going to where is he? Sorry. He's not on mute, so we should be able to hear him. Ed, are you talking? Let's see, can't see.
I can jump on the phone with him if someone could give me his number.
Yeah, I'll text it to you, okay? Oh, there he is. Look, I can see him, but all right. You can call in, Ed. That's the other thing you have the option.
I think Sarah Alger has a comment.
Susan, I just wanted to say, I had that problem one time with a Zoom meeting, and it ended up that my computer microphone was muted, not through Zoom, but just independently on the sound bar.
Get your child in there. She'll know.
So Ed, why don't you try, I'm sure you try Sarah's suggestion. I don't know if you're on a Mac or a PC, but see if you can manipulate your volume control on the keyboard manually and see if that helps.
Should we go ahead with the minutes? I mean,
Yeah.
something?
Yep.
We have enough people.
I think Ed is recusing from my first matter as well.
Yes, he is. So, all right, well, let's get started, and maybe Andrew offline can have a phone conversation with Ed and try to figure out, troubleshoot what's going on there. And I guess in the meantime, if Ed has an issue with the minutes, should he text me? Or text you, Eleanor?
No, it should be part of what's in the public record. So
No, but I mean, if he doesn't have volume, you or I can read it in. I don't think he should. He didn't have objections.
we could do it that way. I think
Okay,
that's
okay, all right. Okay, so the first item on the agenda, first of all, do we want to approve the agenda as, I don't believe it was amended, as submitted?
It was amended. It was just to add missing minutes, that's all, but.
Okay, so would someone like to make a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I'll make the motion.
Does anyone want to, someone second?
I'll
So-
second.
So Lisa makes the motion, and was that you, Michael, seconded?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor, and I will read your names down. Lisa,
Yes.
Ed, Mark,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Michael, did I call you yet, Michael?
I,
Jeff,
Aye.
and Jim.
Aye.
Okay, and I'm an aye. Okay, so the motion is made and approved. So now on to approval of the minutes. So the February 13th, 2020 minutes, I had 2 comments on last month, and Terry did.
We changed it.
Yeah, those. So I don't have any issue with the February minutes. Did anyone else have any questions or comments about those?
I did not.
And then for the March minutes, I had a question about my comment on application 5-20 on page 11. It's page 2 of 3 of the minutes, about halfway down the block. It says that I stated that I agree it would have been hard to catch this, being the porch, with the information provided to the surveyor. And I asked Miss Snyder to get required information. I'm not sure that I said, I don't, it sounds out of context for me that I would have said it would have been hard to catch with the information provided, because I feel like there was a ton of information provided that had that porch on it. So I was just hoping we could go back and just revisit that comment. And that was my, oh, and the other one was on application 7-20, which is on page 3 of 3 of the minutes and page 12 of the packet. There's, I know it went fast, but there's really no.
Hi, I'm here.
Oh, hi. Good.
Thanks.
Okay, welcome. So I thought someone was just being like bored with what I was saying. All right, so 7-20, which was 10 Fulling Mill Road. I know it was really quick. This was Attorney Alger's application. But the only discussion is a comment from Attorney Alger and a comment from me just saying there was no mail. And does anyone else remember there being more discussion than that, or are we just? No?
I think there was a little bit, there was certainly more discussion than just there was no mail.
Yeah, I mean, it
I don't
doesn't
think it was
even.
long. I think we had, yeah.
I don't think we didn't have any objection to what was being asked, and there really wasn't much discussion other than agreement. But I don't know. I feel like the minute should have a little something more in it than just. Or anyone else feel that way, or?
I can send Terry my own meeting notes, but there's not a lot more to it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it was pretty straightforward and cut and dry, but I was just surprised there was like nothing else besides.
I think it's because we'd seen a lot of applications similar to this, and
Okay. I
But-
mean, so I would, if nobody has any other comments on the March ones, I would ask that we make a motion to approve the February minutes. And if we have to do 2 motions, that's fine, but approve the February minutes. And then I'd like to bump out the March ones just to look at those 2 comments.
Okay.
Is that acceptable?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for the February meeting.
Okay, so Lisa makes a motion. Does someone second?
I'll second it.
So Ed seconds. Okay, all those in favor, I will call you out. So Lisa,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
Michael, I think we can move Karen
Aye.
and Jeff.
Aye.
And I don't need to call everyone, right? I can just do 5. Eleanor? Okay, well, I'm aye as well. Mark,
yes, you can.
What?
Yes, you can.
Just do 5.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay. All right, so that motion passes. And then to carry over the March minutes, do we need to make a motion for that, or we just carry those over?
Maybe I should mute off. You should make a motion to carry them over for
Okay, so-
proposed corrections and amendments.
Okay, so would someone like to make the motion to carry over the March minutes to examine for corrections and amendments?
Make that motion.
Okay, so Ed makes the motion. Someone second?
Second.
I'm
I think
sorry, was
Lisa
it?
seconded.
Okay, so Lisa seconded. So all those in favor, again, I'm gonna go just down this list that I have. So Lisa,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
Michael. I think Michael's on mute. Just gonna go to Karam,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
and I am I. Okay, so that motion passes. Okay.
I'm gonna call Michael and tell him he's on mute if you don't mind.
I think I can hear you fine.
Now you're back, yeah.
Okay. All right, so next we're moving on to old business. The first application on this one, which is actually the only one on old business this month, is application 6-20 Axconset LLC, 8 Center Street. Arthur Reed is representing. They have requested to withdraw without prejudice. So the people sitting on this were myself, Lisa, Ed, Karam, and Jeff. And would someone like to make a motion to allow the request to withdraw without prejudice?
I'll
I
make
would
that
make that
motion.
motion.
Oh,
Okay, so we'll say Ed made it. Jeff, you can second. And we will do a roll call vote. So Susan McCarthy, aye. Lisa,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
Karam,
Aye.
and Jeff.
Aye.
Okay, so that motion passes. So next we are moving on to new business. This is the first application. Oh, sorry, I apologize. This one is 0820 Nantucket Westmore Farms LLC applicant, 6 and 8 Old Westmore Farm. Brian Swain is representing. He has requested to continue without opening until August 13th, 2020. We do not need a motion. Or do we need a motion to request if we're not opening it? I mean, a motion to continue if we're not opening it?
Yes, you should do that.
Okay, so would someone like to make the motion to grant the request to continue without opening until August 13th, 2020?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, so Ed makes the motion, and to second?
Aye.
Was that
Lisa.
Lisa?
Yep.
Okay, so Lisa's gonna second it. Again, I'm just gonna go down the list. So myself, oh, actually, yeah, myself, I, Lisa,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
Michael O'Mara,
Aye.
and Kieran.
Aye.
Okay, so that motion passes. So that's continued. Okay, our next application is 09-20 Timothy E. Quinslick and Elizabeth A. Quinslick, 88 Quidnet Road. Sarah Alger is representing. Lisa and Ed both have, Lisa Botticelli and Ed Toole are both conflicted on this one. So sitting is myself, Michael O'Mara, Karam, Jeff, Mark, and Jim and Danny. Sarah, do you want to give your presentation?
Yes, that was 6 people. So you have 6 people sitting?
We have 6 people sitting and then 5 will vote.
Okay.
Okay.
And I just wanted to be sure, I know that Attorney Keith Yankow wanted to participate. And I'm assuming he was given the link. I just
He
want to make
was.
sure.
I believe, yeah.
Okay,
And I
alright.
have a letter in the packet from him, so.
okay. All right, so,
He's here.
oh, good, okay. I just want to make sure everyone has the opportunity to participate. So this is a application for a special permit to alter and extend a pre-existing non-conforming structure on a pre-existing non-conforming lot. The structure is very old. It's been probably there 100 years or more. We've submitted information to that effect. Oops. In with our materials. Our proposal is to demolish the existing shed and then to take off, partially demolish some of the later additions to the old structure, try to bring it back a little bit to what it was, do some additions to it. The end result is that it will be less non-conforming on the south, on the south and north, but still non-conforming, being about 5.2 feet on the south and about 5.5 to 5.6 feet on the north. We had submitted to the Historic District Commission. We had hoped that we would be through that process by the time we got to this hearing. As you probably know, they haven't been meeting all that frequently, or at all, actually. So we have not gotten through that process. We do anticipate that there will be changes to the structure as part of that HDC process, but we think that those changes really lie within the purview of the HDC, and that what's within your purview really is whether or not what we're proposing is substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than what's currently existing. Given that we're taking the structure almost entirely out of that southerly setback, what will be there now is really pretty much just an area well that has a set of stairs in it. And then on the north, a landing and structure, that it's well within your purview to grant this and to leave to the HDC what the final elevations look like.
Okay. I know normally we prefer to see HDC plans. Does anyone on the board have any issue out of the gate with not having the HDC plans in front of us?
I think that in the past, we've always asked people to get through HTC before they come and see us. I understand they haven't been able to do that, but still, I don't think that changes my thinking. I think personally, I'd rather see them get through HTC and then come to us.
Karen, are you raising your hand or just fixing your?
I was unmuting. I agree with Jeffrey.
Okay. I feel the same. I thought about this with the, if we could think about it in terms of, okay, well, these are the numbers, but as you said in your presentation, that Sarah, the massing and the elevations are going to be decided by HDC, but I don't want to determine a number that then turns into, instead of just a step, it's a porch or something bigger. So I agree with Jeff and Kiram that I would prefer to see HDC plans before we go ahead and grant this one.
Okay, well, so continue it to June, but at some point you should consider doing something about the bylaw, because there is no, what if I went to the HDC and they said, well, we don't want to act on this unless we know you can do this with the ZBA?
I think actually in our experience, it's been the opposite. We've received things that, not often, but sometimes, that come back to us because the HDC has said they can do something, and then we have to look at it. So it just,
right.
We just want to make sure that the concern is, that we say it's okay, and then the HDC feels pressure to do something because it's been given zoning approval. So it's cleaner for us, and it, a de minimis setback intrusion is one thing, but a larger one is a different thing, and our standard is the substantial.
Right. No, I get it. I'm not talking about this application in particular. Yeah. I'm just saying in general. This makes it really hard.
Yeah, it's a good point.
To know where to go first. But anyway, we tried, and I hope the HDC will start meeting again.
Yeah. Do any other board members have any comments about this one or? No. Is there anybody, Keith, did you wish to say anything about this one other than I know your point in your letter was that you wanted your clients wanted to see the HDC plans as well?
I think the board is pretty much in agreement with them that postponing it would be the wise thing to do.
Okay. I don't believe there was any other mail on this one besides Keith's letter. Is there anyone else on this Zoom call or in the public that wishes to speak about this one? Eleanor, do you want to open this up for public comment?
It's Linda Williams has posted numerous comments on the live chat bar. Can you see it?
No.
No, I don't see where
Maybe,
what?
I think it's the screen sharing that's making it.
Yeah, because I usually have a chat icon, but it's not here.
On the YouTube is where you would see it.
I'm
Not
not
the
on
Zoom.
YouTube.
Okay, I'll read it then, okay? Can you hear me okay?
Mhm.
Okay. There is a direct abutter to the south at 90 Quidnet with opposition and concerns to the proposal. HDC has not heard this yet, and because of this opposition, it will not be heard by Zoom, but when the HDC meets in a regular face-to-face meeting, some weeks off, as has been past practice of the ZBA. When a historic structure, in this case over 120 years old in Old Quidnet, a matter has been put off until the HDC weighs in. This has been common in the old historic districts to avoid ping-ponging between the two boards. There may be changes made through the hearing process. We are thus asking for this matter to be put over to the June meeting. The abutter is concerned about massing, intrusion into setbacks, basically altering the historic structure, leaving very little of the fabric still intact. It is a narrow lot and the structure already runs side to side. This would also allow time to work with the abutter to address any concerns possible.
Okay, so those seem right in line of where we're at. So would someone, so I don't think we need, is there any more public comment or?
No, not that I can see.
Okay, so let's have to vote on this one. I'm just going to read down the list. We'll have myself, Michael, Kieran, Jeff, and Mark. Would someone like to make the motion to continue until the June, is it June 11th is our next meeting?
I will make that motion.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so Michael made the motion. Would someone care to second it?
Second.
I think that was Karen. Okay, so Michael made the motion, Karen seconded, and then so for votes, I'm an aye to continue. Michael?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
And Mark?
Aye.
Okay, so that motion carries. Okay, so we'll see you back in June, Sarah, for that one.
So we may have to continue again, but
Yep.
I will be in touch.
Okay.
Can I ask that everybody mutes unless they're speaking? I hear feedback and eating and all kinds of stuff. It's difficult.
Cool. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, please, everybody mute if you're not talking. Okay, so our next item of business is also with Sarah Alger. It is application 11-20. Peter J. McKay, Allison McKay, and David P. McKay, and Ann P. Fenoof, trustee, Sarah Alger representing. This is 21 and 25 Monahensett Road. McKay and Fenoof Family Trust. Sorry, I didn't see that part. And there are no known conflicts, so everyone can sit, and then we'll decide who's voting when that time comes. Sarah, would you like to proceed with your presentation on this one?
Sure. I just want to say that I think my clients are also present and available to answer any questions
Okay, yeah,
Or-
I do see
or
them.
add information if I am not complete in my presentation. So this property was bought by two brothers who you probably know, Peter and David McKay in 1974. In the late 70s and 80s, each of them built a house on the property. Peter was a longtime social worker at the Nantucket Cottage Hospital. His wife, Allison, is one of Dr. Leprey's nurses. David has been a bartender and worked at a variety of restaurants. And his wife, Anne, is a teacher at the high school, an English teacher at the high school. So having this property and using it jointly has enabled them over a great number of years to live on the island and work and be in the community and participate. David and Peter spent their entire lives coming to the island. Their great grandparents lived here. So it's a long-term McKay. I mean, there's a McKay Way. The McKays have been part of the Nantucket fabric for a very long time. The property is the subject of an existing variance that was granted at a time when there was a required front to back scalar separation requirement of 12 feet. When built, the houses did not meet that requirement, so there is an existing variance. The property is was non-conforming, became more conforming when the zoning was changed. It contains 42,500 square feet. Part of that was the addition of a 2,500 square foot piece a couple of years ago. At this point, David and Peter's lives are going kind of in different directions. Peter's retired. David, unfortunately, is undergoing cancer treatments that will continue for the rest of his life. Currently makes about 3 or 4 trips a year off island, but that may change in the future. So what they would like to do is have the existing variance or a new variance granted to allow them to either subdivide the lot into 2 pieces, freezing the development at what is currently existing. Both houses, one is 1,064 square feet, the other is 709 square feet, have 3 bedrooms. They would keep a total of 6 bedrooms on the property, 3 in each building. On the plan that you're currently looking at, the piece that's Robert and Ruth Rusher is the piece that they added. So that's the 2,500 square foot piece that they added, I think in 2017 or 18. We took a look at the Arouge, I think it was Brian, was it Arouge? I think that's the name, case that was granted by this board a number of years ago. And it fits pretty squarely with what's happening here. If you look at the aerial, you'll see that the driveway situation is pre-existing, non-conforming. There's a U-shaped driveway that comes in, there. Those are pre-existing non-conforming driveway cuts. By dividing the property in half, each property would then have their own driveway, and that non-conformity would be cured. That's very similar to what happened in that other case. Obviously not being able to do a division, or even in the alternative, a condo of these two structures is a significant hardship given the health issues that David is facing. In your packet, there should have been sort of I think letters or kind of a petition from all of the immediate abutters, all in favor. The Sheehan's, Nina Huber, Lily Baker, Jacobson, etc. The Rosses. You may recall that the McKay Fanoffs worked very closely with the Rosses a year or so ago, and when the Rosses were looking for approval of something that they were doing. They worked with the town when the town was looking to sell what ultimately became the Ross property. So they've attempted to, wherever possible, cooperate and work with their neighbors in the town, and they're hoping that this board will allow them to do this subdivision and grant them the variance.
Okay, so in this plan to divide and modify the variance, both lots would now be non-conforming as to lot size, correct?
Correct.
But they would conform as to frontage?
Yes, I believe that's correct.
And I didn't see in the packet, do you have a proposed plan of how they plan to subdivide, or is it just going to be, the lines down the middle?
Basically just a line down the middle, giving each one approximately the same amount of frontage and the same amount of land area. Each one would have 100 feet of frontage and hopefully, about 21,000 square feet of land area.
And 40 is required, yes?
Correct.
Okay. So just before I go to the other board members, I just want to state that the precedent that you cited, file number 30-10, which was the one that was Hull and Hooper Farm, I distinguish that from this case or this application, because in that case, yes, it fixed the driveway. That was fine. But in that case, one of the lots became conforming. So I think it was a little easier, at least in my opinion, from my voting, it was easier for me to get around to it, because we were eliminating a nonconformity, and only one of the lots was going to be non-conforming, and the conformity that was created was, I think, maybe it was pretty small. I think it was like 1,690 feet or something like that, and the shape of the lot was this weird parallelogram type thing. So yes, we did allow a subdivision, or two lots out of one in that condition, in that situation. But I think in my mind, I'm able to distinguish it. And just trying to think what other notes I had on this before I go to the board. So when the scalar separation, when that went from 12 to 10, are they conforming now into regards as that?
Yes.
Okay.
Because yes.
Okay.
They always had the 12 feet. Remember, it had to be front to back. It couldn't just be side to side. One had to be physically 12 feet in front of the other.
Mm-hmm.
And they did not meet that.
And this is just for clarification, but they are still taxed as one lot, assessed as one lot. The town views it as one lot.
Well, they bought the 79,147 piece and that was taxed separately.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
yes,
Right. But I mean okay.
yes.
Does anyone else on the board have a comment on this one? I just want to look something up real quick. Does anyone else have a comment on this one?
I do.
Okay. Was that Michael? That's you?
Yes.
Okay, please go ahead.
Sarah, the line that would delineate these two lots would meet the sideline setback for both properties?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
yes, we wouldn't create any new nonconformities other than the lot area, obviously.
And Sarah, can you explain where the frontage comes from for both the lots? Because it looks like the minimum frontage is 150 feet and you would only have 200 across Monahasset. Is it using one of the paper roads?
I think we tried to get one part of it off Washington or Webster. But you're right, if
Not
we're,
a cut through road though.
wait a minute. We're not under we're under LUG1 zoning now.
So it's 100, right?
It's 100.
Oh, it's 100. Okay,
It's
so
100.
that is incorrect. Okay.
Right,
So you just
right. Originally, this wasn't an LUG2 zone, but it was changed.
Okay.
Susan, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. Do you have a comment, Ed?
I do have a comment. Sarah, has your client explored the notion of doing this in a different way? Because I don't see this fitting into the bylaw. Other than there is a provision in 139-8C where you can basically do this as long as one of the lot, or I'm not sure if it's one of the lots or both have to be, I think one has to be deemed,
You'd have to have a covenant lot.
yeah, you have to have a
Right.
covenant lot.
What is happening?
Somebody's trying to put definitions up, it looks like.
Oh,
This is Peter McKay. Can I speak if it's possible?
I think, Ed, are you, I mean, that's what I was looking at, Ed, too, is this 139-8C. But Peter, yes, you can make a comment.
Thank you. I just wanted to address the previous reviews. We have explored all options clearly to do this, including the covenant. The issue with the covenant, of course, since both of these have been primary dwellings for all intents and purposes for over 30 plus years, 35 years, that in doing so, one house owned by one unique family would be far lesser value, of course. And the big concern we've got, as Sarah mentioned before, where's my brother Dave, the very real likelihood that at some point in time in the future, they may be forced to relocate to the mainland. And in doing so, as it stands right now, that would require us to sell our house as well, which would clearly be a hardship for them to be able to do that. And two, the covenant aspect would, of course, just devalue one when that would be an inequity and a financial hardship to whichever house would be determined to be the covenant.
Well, that would be an agreement, I think, that you brothers would need to make between each other of how you divided up whatever the proceeds were from whatever division and whatever sale. But you know, the understanding that the main what we're seeing in this application is that to have separate ownership, not to maximize return. And unfortunately for us, unfortunately in this situation, as a regulatory board, we are bound to the regulations, and we don't make decisions based on what's going to be the best financial outcome for people. And I know you get that, but there's a difference between, right? Of course, if anybody could do that, it would be beneficial to divide their lot in two and make two sales instead of one. But I think that there is a mechanism in place that does allow you to do the covenant, and then you get the separate ownership, and that was what you're looking for. And you know, if and when whoever sells, you guys could work it amongst yourselves to have a private agreement of how you divide equity up. I mean, that can definitely be part of your estate plan, but the mechanism by which you do so may not be a clear just division of the lots.
They're saying there's a mechanism.
I hear what you're saying. I do understand that. And I guess aside from the very rigid review of the regulatory aspects, which are there for a reason, obviously, the larger picture as well has been the cooperative nature we've had with the town and making sure the lot behind was approved to be able to build, and then working with the neighbor to be able to build the garage without having to have any more involvement. Looking for the larger picture, I guess, of a little bit of compassion to a very, very difficult situation. I do understand your point. I don't mean to say I don't, but I'm looking for a little bit of flexibility in the application of the bylaws. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I do sympathize, and I hear the hardship. I do. Jim, did you have a comment?
Yeah, just a couple. One, is there a reason why I'm always uncomfortable relying on a mortgage plot plan that, you know, has a statement in there that you can't rely on any of the property lines or anything on this to make a decision. And maybe based on the decision, Sarah can answer this, you'll do a plan, an appropriate plan, but I wish we had something in front of us that showed a more accurate view of the lot.
Well, the reason that we use the mortgage plot plan is that you can actually see it. If I use the plan of record, it's old, and so you're looking at all little lots. So this is a compilation. Our mortgage, even though the mortgage plot plans say that you can't rely on them, you can, because they're, particularly in this case, to a level of accuracy.
Okay.
But
And
obviously, if we were to do a subdivision, we would have to do an actual
Right.
plan that would be provided to the.
I understand that.
And it's land court land, right?
Partially.
So you'd have to submit to the land court anyway if you did a condo as well.
Correct.
And my second question,
unless we withdrew.
Right.
My second question is that can you talk about the condominium option? Like, is it a cost issue?
No, I mean, the condominium option would be a good option, I think, if you were inclined to do that. That would keep the property as a whole. There'd be no subdivision, but it would allow the houses to be owned separately. I think it's actually a very good option. And
condo, though, is not allowed by right, or is allowed by right?
It's not allowed by right.
And but because I don't see in our what is the part of the bylaw we're relying on for us to have ability to create a condo?
Well, you'd have to be granting a variance.
So there is nothing in the bylaw that allows for a circumstance where a condo would be allowed in Lug 1.
Other than by variance, no. That's correct. It's the definition of, I think, secondary dwelling that restricts the ownership of the secondary dwelling and the primary dwelling. So in order to do a condo, we would need a variance from that provision of the bylaw. But doing that would not, it's really not going to change the, that would work for us, the condominium, and it would not change the way the properties are currently used. We restrict the ground cover, and we restrict the number of bedrooms, et cetera, so that it stayed just the way it is now.
And the thinking is, I think I heard from Mr. McKay, is that in the next few years, most likely one of these homes is going to need to be sold.
I think that's true,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Susan, I have a question.
Sure.
What distinguished the, I mean, other than the personal circumstances, which I am sympathetic to, what distinguishes this from hundreds, if not thousands of other situations that are similar with multiple dwellings on a lot that somebody would want to subdivide for whatever purpose, estate purposes, they want to give one to their kids, any of the above. I was having a little hard time with the notion of what's basically a subdivision. It doesn't meet the rules and regs.
Well, here are the couple of things that distinguish it. First, the Board of Appeals already determined that this property met the standards necessary for a variance when it granted a variance in 1989 to this particular property. Second, in terms of the standard that was applied in the Denby Arouge case, we have the correction of the pre-existing non-conforming driveway situation. We have the hardship. Those are a couple of the ways that I can distinguish it.
I think the fact that for me, that we already had given a variance, so my question got me over the hurdle of doing a variance at all, because I agree with Ed. I don't see where the lot or the topography stands out, but the board did specifically find sorry, of course, I'm not seeing it right now, that there was the group of pine trees that was to be preserved, and that was why the houses were sited where they were, and that's why they didn't have the front to back separation. I guess I'm curious if that still exists on the lot.
Let my clients answer that one.
Okay, Mr. McKay?
Could you repeat the question? Because I want to make sure I'm answering correctly.
Sure. So when I read the decision that was issued, the original variance decision, it looked like the way that the board got to to meet the standard of the variance for the topographical situation on the lot was that you represented that there was a group of mature pine trees that you wanted to preserve, and that was why you cited the secondary dwelling and the primary dwelling where they are. And I was wondering if that grove of trees or mature trees still exist on the lot today.
They do still exist, and yes, being relatively, obviously, completely novices to building houses, we selected the area that was open so that we could preserve that, and not recognizing about the 12-foot variance that needed to be the frontage of the houses. The pine trees are still there, yes. We've worked hard to maintain all of that, all the trees as much as we can.
Okay, so
and the house was basically already built too, so to be able to enforce that would have been basically required to tear the house down.
Right. So I guess I just wanted to clarify that was still existing, because when the first decision was made, that was called out as a significant topographical feature of the lot, was the presence of this large group of pine trees in the southwest corner of the lot. So,
yes.
Okay.
I mean, to me, that's a stretch. It was a stretch in 1989.
I agree it was a stretch, but it was there, and that was so we have that to rely on. I agree it's a stretch, and it was also very odd because we haven't called out that kind of specific thing in any decision I can remember, but.
Well, it's not spelled out. I don't believe that's called out in the decision. It reads,
yes, it is.
The pine trees?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's on page 52 of the packet at the last sentence.
I see that. Okay.
Yeah.
I still find that to be a stretch. I mean, the pine tree, it was a stretch then and it's a stretch now. That's all I'm saying. I don't think that is a unique topographical feature.
Well, the
Vegetation that can succumb to the chainsaw at any moment. I don't think that was the intent of the bylaw. So that's just my opinion.
Well, the board did make a finding that it did, so you can rely on your own board's finding. I mean, I know a variance is always a stretch. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it isn't a stretch, because I think anytime you grant a variance, it's a stretch. But if you can't grant a variance, given the hardship to these particular applicants, I mean, when can you? It just seems as if maybe compromising and giving them a variance to allow them to do a condo would be, I don't know if fair is the right word, but it would relieve a significant hardship. It would cure a nonconformity. You could rely on your existing finding.
But it would also create a nonconformity.
Well, being the condo itself.
Well, that's two, being the condo and then being, well, I guess no, then you're right. It's either the condo or it's two undersized lots.
Correct. I was thinking that the condo was less offensive because you're not creating undersized lots.
Yeah, I mean, the second driveway, I'm really not that concerned about. I mean, if we said you can't do it, then they can just close it off and go in the one way and go in, or try to get us, I don't know,
Well, I mean, that's a pre-existing non-conforming.
And it's in the variance, the first variance.
Situation, yeah.
Right, so I also don't see that then as a reason to do it. It's already been given approval in that first variance to have that second driveway.
I guess my problem is this: there seems to be a reasonable alternative, which is to create one covenant lot and one market lot, and which is still a fairly large bite at the apple, and any financial ramifications in terms of different values could be worked out between the parties.
And it's specifically the 139.8C is specifically carved out to create secondary residential lots for year-round residents. Like it's specifically to address this exact issue. So why would anyone ever do this if they could just, I mean, I imagine I don't know. I mean, I hear the hardship and
not every person already has the benefit of an existing variance that can be modified. Not everyone has the unique situation that is involved here, and a significant hardship.
But the variance was to allow for the separation, the not meeting the separation and having two driveways. It didn't address ownership or
no, it did not.
contemplate these larger issues. It was just a variance saying, okay, you built your houses too close together.
And the variance did not address the driveways because the no two driveway rule didn't come into effect until after 1989.
Oh, I thought it said, maybe I'm thinking of, I thought it said specifically.
No, I think that was the Denby case.
Oh, maybe that was in the staff, maybe it was in the staff report, something about that, sorry.
1998 is when it changed.
Yeah, no, I know from the staff report. I thought that it was meant, I thought it was called out in the decision as well, but
no.
All right, does anybody else, any other board members have any comments about this?
I'd like to support it, but I don't think I can. Unfortunately.
So Sarah, you,
Can I ask you to continue this to June so I can have an opportunity to talk to my clients?
yeah.
There is public comment coming in.
Okay. Well, I haven't, yeah, so I was just gonna say,
I'd like to hear the public comment too,
okay,
of course.
well, yeah, I definitely want to hear the public comments. I was just gonna say, before I did that, I was going to say, we have, so, 2 positive letters in support that came in. And is there anyone else on this call that would like to speak about this one before we go to public comment? Okay. Well, I haven't, yeah, so I was just gonna say, can you just identify yourself?
Hear the public comment too,
Okay,
of course.
well, yeah, I definitely want to hear the public comments. I was just gonna say, before I did that, I was going to say, we have, so, 2 positive letters in support that came in. And,
There should have been 3.
oh, okay.
Some are in the
Is that
staff
speaking?
report after this packet was posted. So there are 2 additional letters of support in the staff report,
Right.
which I cited in the staff report. I believe
Oh,
there's
and then
2.
the one from,
And then the packet has the petition that's signed by numerous people and 1 letter.
okay.
So there are 3 letters and then the petition.
Okay, I
per se.
must have missed one, sorry. Okay, so was there anyone else on this call who would like to speak, who has not had an opportunity before we go to public comment? And if you could just identify yourself. No? Okay, so Eleanor, do you want to read the public comment?
Sure, it's coming from Emily Molden on behalf of the Nantucket Land Council. She says, I do sympathize with the applicants and their difficult situation. This property has historically been non-conforming and not subdividable. Granting this request will make them even more non-conforming. While the ZBA considers applications on a case-by-case basis, this is not an appropriate practice and precedent for the nearby Surfside area and island. In this instance, the property owners do have another clear alternative under 139(8)(c), as discussed by the board, to seek a special permit to create a secondary lot for qualified family members. This is exactly the type of situation that the secondary lot family member provision was put into the bylaw for. I would ask the board to consider that there is another appropriate alternative and to deny this request. Thank you for your time. That's it.
Okay. So Sarah, the applicant has asked to continue until June. Would someone like to make that motion?
I'll make the motion to continue to June. What was the
Okay.
date again? June 11th?
June 11th.
I'll second that.
Okay, so Ed made the motion, Michael has seconded, and we will just vote the regular members. So I will read off your names. So Susan McCarthy, aye. Lisa Botticelli. Lisa, are you on mute?
Aye.
Okay. Ed Toole,
Aye.
Michael O'Mara,
Aye.
and Karen Koziak.
Aye.
Okay, so the motion to continue to June 11th carries. Okay. Thank you, Sarah. So.
Thank you, goodbye.
Bye. So the next application is number 1220 Ann Maleta, 15 Broadway. Presenting is Fader.
Yes, thank you. My name is Marcia Fader, and I am the architect for Ann Maleta. And this is a property at 15 Broadway in Sconset. It is a property that is under restoration to become the primary dwelling for Ann. This application is for, the dwelling is kind of in the built in the mid 1700s. So it's a very old structure built long before, of course, there were any zoning regulations. So the house is sited on the lot in such a way that it is non-conforming on 3 sides with the setback. And the application for a special permit here is to site an HVAC outdoor unit, which would be supplying heat for winter use for Anne. And the proposed location, as you'll see on the site plan, is on the southern side, tucked into a corner in such a way that the setback, the existing non-conforming setback, is not made more non-conforming, and no new non-conformities are created. It is located on a portion of the property also where we already have an existing very high, 5-6 foot high fence that is on the property line that you see noted on the site plan. And on the front street side, there will be an outdoor shower. And they, together, the fence and the outdoor shower create a visual barrier and a sound barrier, so much so that the unit will not be visible from a public right-of-way. We have carefully worked with our HVAC contractor to choose a unit that is running around 56 decibels. It is the quietest that we could find to locate, and it is a small unit. And I think it's important to note that with the restoration that's been underway, at the time Anne Maletta is in a rental awaiting to take up residency here, being slightly delayed, as you can imagine. But all of the exterior changes have an approval from the HDC, as I'm aware from the prior application this afternoon, that has come up as an issue. The HDC has approved all of the exterior changes, which include, which I think a critical portion of that approval is the outdoor shower, because that does screen the unit. We had been moving forward with a separate HDC application for an approval as slightly as a formality for the unit, even though it is clearly not visible. But as you know, we weren't able to proceed in the last 2 months with that application with the HDC. I'd like to submit to you all that we would continue to do that, but that nothing in terms of the physical visibility of the unit will change with that application. Anne Maletta, the owner, has worked closely with her closest abutter, which is Lisa Soder on the southern side. And Lisa has submitted a letter in support of this application. We did receive a letter from a homeowner across on Front Street requesting that it be a quiet unit, and we have responded to that. But of course it is within several feet of Lisa's home, and that's where the approval has come, and we're really have assured the abutter across the way, which would be approximately 26 feet away, that we indeed have chosen an extremely quiet unit. So this is the application for a special permit. without increasing any, the non-conforming setback distance for this one unit that will supply the heat as well as the air conditioning for this restored home. This is a home at 15 Broadway, which has also been known as the House of Lords. So I think that's pretty much the application.
I have a question, Susan.
Sorry, I muted myself. Okay, I have a question first, and then
Yeah.
my question was just in it looks the plans that we have for the were there any changes to the exterior of the property during this renovation? I know you talked about the shower.
There were not changes to the footprint in the restoration at all. There were fenestration changes, a door change, but there were no changes to the footprint at all.
Okay, and so the outdoor shower that you talk about, is that the bump out to the?
You know, I believe on the plan that you're looking at, it is not showing. It's not on the HDC. It is right up against Front Street where there was an existing shower. Which would be the southern east corner of the property.
And the outdoor shower is new, or it's replacing another one?
Yes, the enclosure part is replacing what had been there.
Okay, I would, what's?
Susan, may I?
Yeah, what page is that on?
It's not on a page. I didn't include it because this shower does not, it doesn't have a fixed platform. So it's not considered a structure in the sense of something that we need to worry about with setbacks. And I discussed this with the building commissioner specifically. Because this plan shows it in the setback, it's not a structure. The building commissioner will not consider it a structure.
Okay,
So
just not seeing it.
We wanted to
It's
see
right-
it from the perspective of screening, I think.
Yeah, so can you enlarge that at all, Eleanor? Thank you. Okay, Ed, what was your question?
Oh, my question, now that we're looking at the shower, is that the position of the existing shower? It was right there on the Front Street lot line?
Yes.
So you're just really just replacing what I would, you're replacing it because it was rotten or just needed?
Yes, it needed completely rebuilding. Yes.
And my second question is, was there consideration of putting the HVAC unit on the Broadway side where there's ample room from the setback?
There was consideration of putting it in that other notch in the southwest corner.
Mm-hmm.
And when Anne began to work with Lisa, the request was made to put it onto the east side. We understood in reviewing the option where it would not have been in that notch out, that we would not really be able to obtain approval from the HDC because it would have had complete visibility from Broadway, from the street. If it had gone, I mean, there was an option there to not even require to be out of the setback from Broadway, but it would have meant that it would have been taken up that front yard and being visible. And in reviewing it with the HDC, felt that it would not receive approval. So based upon the request of Lisa Soder on the southern property line, it was moved to where we are proposing it be located now.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you went to the HDC, at least informally, to see if it would get some sort of feedback on the Broadway location?
Yes, there were informal discussions, yes.
Okay. I mean,
You
didn't,
know, the only thing that you have on Broadway is a very low picket fence. So even putting a fence around a unit in that front yard would not have screened, a unit there. And the feeling really was that it would be far less obtrusive without being visible at all, and would have a lot more opportunity for sound barriers at the back where we are proposing it be located.
it's interesting to me. I mean, I'm not a sound engineer, but you're almost creating a little tunnel between the building and the fence and the shower. Not a tunnel, that's not the right term, but that might actually amplify the noise. But well, as I said, I'm not a sound engineer, so who really knows?
You're not increasing the setback intrusion, correct?
Correct.
Is that actually the size of the unit, or is it more of one of the narrow units that attaches directly to the building?
That is scaled accurately as the size of the unit, which is approximately just probably over 2 feet square and about 29 inches high. But this is not a one, this isn't, as you see, it's a 2-story dwelling. And again, this is a unit to provide heat and the air conditioning for the 2-story house.
I think it's safe to,
Michael, you're muted.
I think it's safe to say that the board is a lot more interested in the noise of the air conditioning than they are in the noise of a condenser providing heat in the winter. And I'd be curious to see, it would certainly be less intrusive if you had a condenser that hung off the side of the building rather than one that needs, most condensers need 12 to 18 inches of airspace between the back of the condenser and the building. So if the board's of a mind to grant relief here, I would think that it would be in everyone's interest to get it as far away from the property line as possible. Thank you.
Based on Michael's comments, did you look at those other options? And I guess, Michael, sorry, to go back to you, are you suggesting that we put a limit on not on the size, but the how close it gets to the setback, to the property line?
Well, I would, what I'm suggesting is that I have seen the products that Edward's talking about.
Me too.
I know exactly how deep they are. There's zero distance from the building. So instead of, it looks like this could be a foot from the property line as drawn. I think we pick up at least another foot or more if we went with a condenser that hung off the side of the building.
Well, what if we were then to require 2 of those smaller units? I mean, what we did was to be careful and thoughtful about potential noise and searched for a unit that would provide the lowest decibel units for potential noise in the neighborhood. So it'd be really hard to say. I don't have the engineer or the HVAC contractor on, but they've been extremely mindful about the size and the placement for servicing, for airflow. And all of that has been taken into consideration for a unit that will supply, as a mini split system that would supply the air conditioning and the heat both. But to put 2 units instead of 1, I would be concerned about that noise level, being that this was engineered for that goal of doing the job with the least amount of noise. But if you wanted to put a conditional approval that if we were to find 1 or 2 units, if 2 units are required, and we're able to maintain that low level, which right now it was a unit at 56 decibels, then there's not a problem for us to put 1 or 2 smaller units. But as I say, I'm not the engineer, but I know that we worked very carefully to specify what would be most appropriate there.
I'm not sure if the rest of the board would be interested in granting a conditional approval without knowing the facts, but what I think would be appropriate is to put this off for another month, have you come back with the information from the manufacturers, size, decibel rating, etc., and see if 1 unit is going to take care of the whole house or if it's going to take 2.
I agree.
Well, no, I have the information of exactly what this unit is, and so I'm not really understanding what the opposition is to this 1 unit. It is a Bosch Bova unit. I have the information before me. And you could have the spec sheet with it. I mean, it's a small unit. It's not as high as some of those smaller, thinner units. So I don't really understand what the opposition to this particular unit that I think.
So I don't think the opposition is to the particular unit. I think and I don't think it's opposition either. I think it's just wanting to understand. We don't like to see ACs in the setbacks. I understand that this property is already in the setback, but if it could be, if we could minimize the impact, the increase into the setback, then that would be our goal. So it's not this particular unit that's a problem. It's just, could there be and I know these units too, there's 2 of them getting installed at a house across the street from me. They're like taller and thinner and they just attach right to the house. So then you'd have more space in the setback. That would not be taken up by the unit. So what Michael suggested and what I'm inclined to agree with is that we ask you to, like you said, you don't have your engineer or your HVAC person on the line, is to go talk to them and see if there is an option for one of these other units that attaches to the house that would give more space in the setback and maybe just as quiet.
So could I ask a question? Because what I'm understanding is that there's no way that even with a smaller unit that we're going to be non-conforming in the setback. And so putting a smaller unit might gain 12 inches. It might gain 10 inches.
Mm-hmm.
That seems a rather minimal gain for an HVAC unit to gain 10 or 12 inches of space. I don't understand what would be the advantage to gaining 10 more inches in a non-conforming setback.
That it's less intrusive.
You'd be minimizing the setback issue.
Right.
Wow.
Also, quite frankly, even though I live out here, I'd like to do a drive-by and just see why I can't, or get a sense of why it can't go on the Broadway side.
I think that's a good idea, Edward, and I'm with creative landscaping.
I agree.
Seeing a lot of condensers hidden on busy roads.
Yeah.
And then we're not granting relief for something that can be done elsewhere, which has pretty much been our line. But
Right. I think if there was, something that came down from the HDC that they were not going to allow it, then that would be maybe a different story. But I agree with you. I think you could create some screening that would be tasteful, and the HDC has allowed that to happen in places where it has to happen. So I would be okay with a drive-by and a continuance. Does anyone, did we talk about, so the mail that we got was only, well, before I say that, does anyone else on the board have any other comments about this one?
Nope.
No, okay. So the mail that we got on this one was the support from 11, the support from 13, the Front Street or Broadway, and then the concern from 11 Front Street, and another person who was requesting the application, I believe. Copy of the application. Is there, and Eleanor, was there public comment on this one?
No public comment has appeared.
Okay, and is there anyone else on the call who I might have missed who wanted to speak on this one?
Yeah, could I say something?
Sure, Pat.
I'm Pat McCarthy. I'm the general contractor out there, but with the wall-mounted units, there's a lot of windows in that area that wouldn't allow it. That jut out, like where you're proposing putting it on the front of, there's a window facing this street, facing Broadway, and then on the back there's a window facing Front Street. So those units tend to be pretty high, and what Marcia proposed is a low unit that could sit below a window. There's actually, in that little alleyway, there's 2 windows on the door, so it would have to be underneath a windowsill. And it has the same issue on the Broadway side. There's a window in that little alcove facing Broadway.
Marcia, can you send us the spec on, if this gets continued, can you send us the spec on the unit you have?
Yep, of course.
Third unit?
Mhm.
Okay, so why don't we, so thank you, Mr. McCarthy, that would have been, to see the windows would be helpful. So it's been mentioned to propose a continuance with an opportunity for people to do a drive-by and have the architect send us the specs on the unit. Does anyone wish to make that motion?
Why don't you make it second it?
Well, I'm not hearing.
Hold on. Does Jim you have a comment?
I'm not hearing a request to continue.
I mean, sorry, I meant not a request. I meant a suggestion by one of the board members. Thank you, Jim.
I think that Patrick had another comment.
Yes, yeah. I'm going to get to him. Okay, Mr. McCarthy, you had something to say?
Would it be safe to say that it could go east or west of that jut out, that we could continue with the work? Because it wouldn't make a difference to us which side it went on the Broadway side or the Front Street side.
I think what they're saying is they might want it to be on the Broadway side and outside of the setback, which means not in that little jog.
Oh,
correct.
Because I think it is on the Broadway side, isn't the setback the front of the house?
No.
No, because you've already have your 0 setback on Front Street.
I don't think what is the setback on Broadway? Because
it would have to be 5 feet. Because you can only take your front,
5 feet.
you can only take your front yard in one location.
It's 10. It's SR1.
Yeah. I think the house is 10 feet back from the fence.
I'm looking at the map the plan by Michael Connolly, and it says the rear and side yard setback are 5 feet. The
Yeah,
front,
it's in the OHD. It wouldn't be a 10.
No, it's not.
No.
It's in SR1.
right,
It's
but
10
still,
feet.
it's SR1, which is 5 feet. For the
10
setback.
feet. It's 10 feet front.
10
From the
feet
front,
front.
but the front street is the front yard setback.
Oh,
No,
I see
it
what
is
you're saying.
not.
No, they're using
Okay, guys,
Broadway
too
as
many
the
people
front-
are talking.
Sorry.
Too many people are talking.
They're using Broadway as their front yard setback.
It is.
Hold on, I'm gonna go to the applicant. Marcia, what are you using as your front yard setback?
Broadway is the front.
Okay, so Broadway is your front. So you have,
10 feet.
There isn't the dimension from the
No, but
road to the building.
But it's 21.38, it looks like, to the Lisa Soder's bump.
Mhm.
So chances are it's slightly over 10 feet.
Right.
So it just means that we need a special permit if it went in the front yard also. It would still
No,
be.
I think it might fit in
Mhm.
front of the building and still be outside the setback. We can't tell because we don't have a dimension plan to the front of the building from the property
Yeah.
line.
I feel like the plan's a little lacking in information, but,
I mean, I'm gonna say I don't have a real issue with this application personally. It would be nice to, I mean, but I'm happy to do the view for the other board members. It seems like a appropriate location. The neighbor seems good with it. It's not increasing a nonconformity. It's gonna be screened by a tall shower. I know it's difficult because I believe the one on Center Street that just withdrew, they were trying to put something in the setback and we said no. So it's difficult because of that. But I don't remember that if that application had a location that had a pre-existing nonconformity, that they were getting no closer to the lot line.
Well, Lisa, I don't think we said no. We said, can you explore other options?
That's
And
correct. That's
I
correct.
think that's what they were going to do, and maybe they found another option that worked without relief. So that's why they withdrew.
That's
Right.
correct.
I guess that's a good, yeah, that's a good way of putting it. But, I think from an HGC perspective, I would certainly prefer to see it where they've proposed it than on the Broadway side. But I'm happy to, I think it would be helpful, Marcia, to have a plan that shows where the 10-foot setback is on the front, on the Broadway side, just so that we can see if something would fit and be compliant.
mhm.
It's helpful to know that.
Yeah, no, we've certainly looked at that option and it's not,
It looks like, I mean.
it's just that it's a very, very small, I mean, when you look at the lot now and you see the building taking up most of the lot, it looks like a big front yard, but it's very small. And I think I can do that plan easily, but we definitely looked at it and discounted it as an option. But we can explore it. It's just, we've lost a lot of time already. So we were just feeling that this was a really good solution and one that met with the support of the neighbor, which was very important to us. I know that on the, what would be the northwest portion of that front property is where the propane gas tank is. So we would have some conflicts there. But on the other, the southwest, we had looked at putting it in that corner. But the neighbor had requested it to be at the back.
Are you talking about, Marcia, the propane tank that is showing in the way?
Yes, and of course, this, I don't know the date of this site plan that Connolly did, but the propane tank is further toward the west.
It was just done
February 14th.
February 14th. And then the other, can you, Eleanor, will you show the other one that you didn't put in our packet? Because that showed the shower? Because that was done later. I think that was done the 20th or something. Right?
While Susan, I mean, while Eleanor's pulling that up, Susan, I mean, and this is really addressed to Marcia. If it doesn't work anywhere else vis-a-vis setbacks and whatnot, we then have that evidence in our file, which we don't have now. So it's a little harder to, for me at least, to, I don't have a fundamental problem really where it is, again, because of the neighbor's consent and the shower and the fence, like Lisa said. But if it could go on the Broadway side, meet zoning, I think that should be explored. If it can't, then no matter where you suggest it was going to violate zoning, if you will, and you would need relief. So I think it's just crossing the T's and dotting the I's. If you've done that work but just didn't submit it, it's unfortunate, but that's my problem with it.
I agree. I think that if we have been consistent about, especially about these AC units, about being in the setback. So if there is somewhere else that it can go and not create or increase a nonconformity.
Well, I will submit those plans, but even in the front, it will be at least a major portion of it in the setback.
I think that's true. I mean, I just graphically was just sketching on it. I do think that's true, but I think having it in the file per Ed's comment. But there might be a suitcase type of unit that would fit outside of the setback.
Mm-hmm.
It's later at the north side of the property where the way is than it is on the southerly side. But as you come in, I think the lines converge a little. So as you get further north on the lot towards the way, it gets harder to fit.
Right, because if you're coming in on the sideline setbacks of 5 feet, as Patrick McCarthy has said, we are right in front of large 6/6 windows, of which you would be higher than the sill height. But I understand that you're not able to see this because yes, we did explore the different options, but when we came upon one that seemed to be the best of all, I didn't understand that I would need to do that. But I think we have windows on both of those front facades on Broadway that are large 6/6 windows. So if you come in the 5 feet from either the north or the south and you come 10 feet in from Broadway, we are still requesting a special permit for setback, being in the setback.
So I think in the future, probably it would be good to also submit some photos or architectural drawings that show those conditions, why it doesn't work in other locations. So we have that information.
Yeah.
We can review it during the meeting.
Can I say something, Lisa?
Yes.
I just had somebody measure the front of the house to the front fence, and it's 12.5 feet. So it would need one of the units that mount to the building, but on both of those jut outs on the front, they're all windows. There's 2 windows to the north one, and there's 1 window to the southern one. So it wouldn't really be an option on the front garden unless it goes back into that little notch there.
So again, this is where photos would help, and dimensions on a plan. How does the board feel about moving forward?
Well, I feel that it is unfortunate another month, especially with what has gone on the last couple months, but it's not necessarily this application, it's the next one. Mm-hmm. When they just say, oh, you let them do it. Well, we let them do it because they told us that these conditions existed. Well, it doesn't show in the file that those conditions, we just need we need some we need some evidence in the file as to why you can't do it elsewhere, in my opinion.
I agree. I agree with that. Anyone else?
I think I probably agree with you guys as well. I'm like Lisa, I don't have a problem where it is, but I'd like to be able to feel that that's our only option. So
Yeah.
I think they could have come to the application a little better prepared with photographs, with a dimension plot plan, with specifications on the unit.
Yeah.
I'll make that motion to continue to June 11th for more information.
I'll
Okay.
second the motion.
Who seconded, sorry?
Hey, Edward.
Ed, okay, so Michael made the motion, Ed seconded. I'm just gonna read down the list, okay? So all those in favor, so saying aye will mean that you're in favor of continuing the application to June. Myself, aye. Lisa?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Kiram?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, so that motion carries. Okay, thank you, Marcia. Thank you, Pat, and we will see you in June.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Susan, I'll be back in 30 seconds.
Okay, can we recess for whatever, 30 seconds?
Sure.
Okay.
Stay.
Someone's knocking on the door, you got company.
Yeah. I will come down. Thank you.
Okay, so for the next section, Eleanor, are you there?
Yes,
Okay, so I'm recused on this one.
so Lisa should take over.
So Lisa can take over. I think everyone is back on. I don't know if Lisa has, do I need to do anything with the script about people who are on the call or confirming that they're on now?
I think you should, well, Lisa should confirm who's part of this particular matter. Yes.
Okay, does she have the list?
So
Well,
she
I
can,
have who's on. I can see who's on the call. Should I just go through it?
yes, we just want to identify.
Okay, and then, but before you do that, Eleanor, I should jump off, right?
Yes,
And then Lisa will close the meeting.
correct.
Okay, well then I'm gonna jump off. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for your participation.
Bye.
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 Okay, so I have a list here of who's on the call. Howard Edelman, sorry, excuse me.
Can you start the video? I can't be seen. Not that it's very important, but
Oh, Eleanor, I think you need to do that, right?
yeah, there we go.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Howard Edelman,
Yes.
Paul Haverty,
Good afternoon.
Ruth Plandowski,
Yes, I'm here.
Tucker Holland,
Present.
Chris Young,
I'm here.
Josh Posner,
He was there.
oh, he's here, he's just muted.
Let me unmute him. Hold on. He has to unmute himself. I've already unmuted him.
Maybe Ed can tell him how to do
Okay,
that.
I'm
Oh, there
here.
you go. Okay, we got you.
Sorry about that.
No problem. Is there anybody else that we're expecting that is not on the call?
No.
Okay. So this is item number 51-03, Beach Plum Village Rugged Scott 40B. The discussion is about implementation of a policy outlined in the comprehensive permit. Do we want to start with, how do we want to start this, with Tucker or?
Yes.
Okay, so Tucker?
Sure. Thank you very much, Madam Chair and members of the ZBA. I hope you don't mind. I kind of just wrote down some opening remarks, and so I may be looking off to the side here as I'm speaking. We wanted to thank you for the opportunity to address the board today. I've been thinking a lot about what to say at the start of today's session. There are a lot of different routes one could reasonably take. We don't particularly want to go through some of the unpleasantness that has surrounded the discussions around establishing a non-resident access program for a defined set of neighbors to the Beach Plum Village 40B development. As the members of the ZBA observed and commented at the February 13th meeting, the last time we were before you on this topic, the developer and Beach Plum Village representatives involved have clearly and consistently been putting up roadblocks, as one ZBA member put it, to this process to establishing a fair and equitable program. While we were very willing to go through any aspect of the prior discussions that the board would find helpful, our interest here today is really forward-looking and seeing how, with your help, we can arrive at a fair and equitable program that is consistent with the comprehensive permit condition and the settlement agreement which the developer freely entered into. Therefore, in respect to the board's time, we are simply going to focus on the proposal provided to us by Howard Edelman on March 13th. This is the last written proposal the neighbors received from the developer and the homeowners association. As we have noted in correspondence contained in the packet and the staff report, the March 13th proposal and proposal from Howard and Josh has been the basis of our discussions to date. I'm going to quickly take you through each of the points in the proposal, noting where we have previously agreed with Howard. We believe this exercise now will save time later. So point one, Beach Plum Village definitively committed to implementing a non-resident membership program regarding the common amenities in time for the opening of the pool for the 2020 season. We agreed. 10 non-resident memberships will be created and offered annually. We agreed. On or about April 15th, 2020, a mailing will go out to all neighbor residents in the defined area of the ZBA comp permit decision, informing them of the details of the non-resident program and asking folks to indicate by May 15th if they are interested in participating. Obviously, the dates need to change, but of course we agreed with the principle. Payment of $2,500 made payable to the BPOA Capital Reserve account is due by May 31st, 2020. The annual fee will be due on this date as well. This is a hard deadline. The figure contained here is one of the two areas of disagreement, and I'll address it further at the end of my remarks. Point 5, to the extent less than 10 residents indicate their intent to participate, all will be deemed non-resident members, so long as their payment is received by May 31st, 2020. We agreed. To the extent more than 10 residents indicate intent, a lottery will be held at the Beach Plum Village Clubhouse on or about May 22nd, 2020. A Beach Plum homeowner representative will conduct the lottery. Interested applicants are invited to attend. Those that do not fall within the first 10 will be placed on an ordered wait list. We agreed. Initial non-resident members renew automatically each year so long as their payment is received by April 1st in subsequent years. We agreed. To the extent there are less than 10 non-resident memberships in place on or about April 15th of each year, a mailing will go out to all neighbor residents in the defined area of the ZBA comp permit decision, informing them of the details of the non-resident program and asking folks to indicate by May 15th if they are interested in participating. These names will be added as determined by lottery to any current wait list. New non-resident members will be informed by May 22nd of each year. We agreed. New non-resident memberships will be granted in order of the wait list so long as payment in full is received by May 31st of that year. We agreed. Item 10, a one-time $2,500 administrative capital reserve payment is due at the outset. Otherwise, non-resident members are not subjected to any assessment at any time. This item is somewhat redundant with item 4 previously mentioned. We agreed with the no future assessment, and it is only the amount which I mentioned before I will address shortly. Number 11, non-resident memberships are not transferable upon sale. We agreed to this provision so long as the annual dues rate reflects this material limitation. Number 12, non-resident membership usage of the common amenities is limited to residents and their guests whom they must accompany. Non-resident memberships do not extend to renters of the non-resident properties. Again, we can accept the limitation so long as the annual dues rate reflects this material restriction. We go back to the comp permit language of access subject to a comparable fee structure. Number 13, an annual dues fee will be determined as a percentage of the highest tier of Beach Plum Village assessment. 5 homes are at the 3.46% level per Josh's spreadsheet, and will appropriately address applicable operating costs. We believe using the average fee by the BPB homeowners is the most logical way to do this. The developer himself used the average rate in materials provided by him to us. We would also note there's nothing here about 83% of the highest rate, as you can see. Number 14, in order to keep transparency in the setting of the fee structure, initially and on an annual basis, a representative group of non-resident members will be allowed to review the accounting with the HOA in a mutually agreeable format. When Chris and I spoke with Howard on May 2nd, we all discussed and agreed to a simple clarification here that any change in the allocation percentage to the line items presented by Robin Halleck would need to be agreed to by the non-residents, such agreement not to be unreasonably withheld. Number 15, non-resident members shall comply with the rules of the use of amenities to the same extent as resident members. The BPOA may deny cancel membership to those who violate these rules. Obviously applied in the same way to non-residents as residents. We agreed. Acceptance of non-resident members shall occur only once per year on or about the dates listed above. We agreed. So as you've just heard, we have previously agreed with Howard in our discussions on 13 of the 16 points with some minor clarifications. And 2 of the 3 that have not been agreed to are really the same issue as I noted during the review. This being the administrative fee, the other area being the annual dues fee. Before getting into the numbers, it's probably worth noting we had the opportunity to run through the Bpb budget numbers and allocations provided March 6 with the developer's representative, Robin Halleck, which we appreciated. We did not take issue with Robin's original allocations to the common amenities, even though arguably things were included in the common amenities figures like the cost for the annual HOA meeting that really had nothing to do with us. But we didn't want to quibble. Now, regarding the annual dues, Howard is suggesting non-residents pay $5,437 and have much more limited rights. At $5,437 annually, non-residents would be paying more than what some market rate Beach Plum Village homeowners would be paying, whose rights to the amenities are not limited. Furthermore, the 83% of the highest rate assigns a disproportionate burden to the non-residents. As you've seen the materials provided, we have proposed paying $3,912 in annual dues and using the average Beach Plum Village homeowner rate. This equates to the average Beach Plum Village homeowner's share of the common amenities as outlined by Robin. Depending on the number of non-residents who join, this figure would go down for everyone, including the non-residents, as illustrated in the financial analysis pages provided in the packet. Howard would probably point out that the affordable homes are included in this average. We recognize that. We have taken this approach from a home is a home is a home perspective, and in recognition of the limitations Howard would like to impose on the non-residents. Regarding an initiation or administrative fee, we can say the following. We have repeatedly asked for proof that anyone at Beach Plum Village paid an initiation fee. None has been forthcoming, presumably because none exists. Therefore, we do not believe an initiation fee is appropriate at all. At the February 13th ZBA meeting, a ZBA member noted, I agree 100%. I don't ever see this being even contemplated at the time of the original comprehensive permit decision. Having said that, Howard did recently share with us on May 2nd that in fact homeowners do pay a $300 administration fee as part of the HOA. If it helps bring this matter to a close, we would be happy to pay the same. The point we have made to Howard on multiple occasions is that if having some modest initiation fee somehow is critical to him, we are interested in the total picture as any reasonable person would be. This includes the annual fee and the administrative fee. This is why we did not sign on fully to Howard and Josh's March 13th proposal. A modest administration fee, perhaps, and the annual dues rate need to work in the whole, be fair, and be consistent with the ZBA's original decision and the settlement agreement entered into by the developer. For example, if Howard wanted to propose a $5,000 administration fee and annual dues of $1,159, which is what the affordable homeowners pay in Beach Plum Village, and whose common amenity rights actually align more with what Howard has proposed for the neighbors than with the BPB market rate owners' rights, as the affordable homeowners are prohibited from renting their homes, that kind of approach is perhaps something we could seriously consider. Bottom line, we can entertain any number of fair approaches. What we can't do is be expected to pay for a first-class ticket and simultaneously be asked to sit in coach. The world doesn't work like that, and we trust the world, and we trust the board would agree it's not comparable as required by the permit. And to be clear, we are happy to sit in coach if we are only paying a coach fare. We are grateful to the ZBA for your assistance in trying to find a solution that fairly addresses the comprehensive permit and settlement agreement requirements, and moreover, may start to sow harmony in the Beach Plum Village neighborhood. I'll turn it over to Chris for a few additional remarks.
Thank you very much, members of the board. I just wanted to reiterate what I said in my last, during the last meeting, which is that I feel very saddened by the process that's pitted neighbor versus neighbor. But I think it's important to realize that the situation was preventable, as demonstrated by the foresight of the ZBA and presumably the developer and his attorneys who signed off on the Superior Court settlement agreement, and was written into the original approval when it said that, and I'm just referring to section 4 of the decision under construction, where it says, prior to the application for a building permit for any dwelling unit, the applicant shall submit the following information. Under section M of that same section, or paragraph N, it says that the clubhouse, pool, tennis court, hours of operations and guidelines, see section 3.2.0, will be submitted. And in that section is where it says, it describes the comparable fee structure in the 10-member non-resident family members. So we're just feeling like we're at the end of the road here, discussing something that should have been resolved at the beginning. And unfortunately, now there's a lot of emotions involved. So that saddens me that we've had to engage in these kind of controversial discussions with the neighbors that we're eventually going to be sharing these amenities with. So I'm hoping that the ZBA can now help us turn back the clock, remove the emotions, and come to a resolution that is comparable and fair. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Hey, this is Howard. Josh, you don't mind if I speak first? And Paul, you don't mind if I speak first? Is that correct?
Yes, so I did just want to point out, this is Paul Haverty representing Rugged Scott LLC and Josh Posner. Josh has stepped out of the middle of this because he has felt all along that this agreement is something that really does have to be something that's done between the unit owners, the homeowners association, and the neighbors. I recognize Mr. Young's comments with regards to pitting neighbor against neighbor, but the truth of the matter is, if Mr. Posner had entered into an agreement previously and then turned over the association to the unit owners, and it was an agreement that they found to be untenable, we were going to run into the same situation anyways. So this is something that really does need to be worked out mutually. And I do think it needs to be worked out between the neighbors and the unit owners, and not by the board. I don't think this this decision or the settlement agreement that was entered into really contemplates that the board was going to be put in the road, put in the situation where it was supposed to be overseeing the minute details between the parties. I don't think that's a proper approach for the board. I don't think that it is fair to the board to put you in that situation. So we do have some thoughts on how we can get to where we need to get, but I do want to let Howard speak.
Thanks. First, thanks for giving me this opportunity to speak with you. I just want to make two introductory comments. The first is, unfortunately, I do not know the members of the board, but I want to assure you that I and the rest of the residents of Beach Plum are as much committed to living in harmony with our neighbors and promoting the values of our communities as well as the values of the island. We're not, let's be blunt about this, we're not Johnny come latelys. While I may not have lived on Nantucket as long as some other folks, I've been here as first a renter for 35 years and as a homeowner for 15 years, and my neighbors at Beach Plum can say the same, if not more so. So I just want to make it clear that we are as committed to doing the right thing as everybody else is and says they are. I also want to be blunt and say that whatever issues you've had with the developer, whether within the Beach Plum confines, so to speak, or as to matters outside Beach Plum, we're taking this place over. And I don't mean that in any nasty way. It's going to be ours. It's going to be our responsibility in as little as, you know, a month or two, or whenever the last C of O is issued to Josh. So please focus on what's best for us and what's best for our neighbors outside the confines of Beach Plum. So having said that, Tucker was loath to redo the past, but he sort of did. But I would be even briefer than he on that. First off, let me say unequivocally that, and I'll direct this to Tucker, although Chris may have been involved in some of the conversations. I'm not positive. Tucker, certainly agreed to a $2,500 initiation fee. It's true, my proposal as put before you is $5,000. And it's also true that when we couldn't agree, that we said to each other, all bets are off and we can make any proposal that we think is reasonable. But we did agree to a $2,500 figure. And if Tucker wants to deny it, he'll deny it. But that's not accurate. So that's number one. And number two, as I wrote in one of my communications, Tucker's quote to me was, I have no problem with the assessment at the highest rate. And that's a fact. I can tell you exactly where I was and what car I was sitting in at the time. Nonetheless, that's enough of the past. We are where we are. So let's take a look at the major issues confronting us. First, I don't agree with Tucker that our neighbors in the Second area are sitting in coach and that they're somehow deprived of the benefits the Beach Plum folks are. There are some language differences that we have to address, but I think we'll resolve them so that any differences in usage will be, minor, if not minimal. Second, it's simply not accurate to say this is second-class citizenship, as Tucker suggests, because the issue of the annual, as opposed to the initiation fee, and I want to stress this, the issue of the annual fee is just that. It's an annual maintenance fee. You simply cannot say that by operation of law or regulation, that 25% of our folks who are prohibited and pay 20% of what the market rate people should therefore be counted in the same way as the other 30. There are 10 40B homes and 30 market rate homes. And so if you're going to be accurate in terms of what is required to be paid, even from Tucker's perspective, i.e. Payment as the average, what the average homeowner pays, that number comes out to close to $4,900. $4,900. And I've given you the math. I show you how I arrived at, and I think it's frankly not challengeable in any realistic way. You have to say the 40B folks, they pay 20% of the annual maintenance. Therefore, they should be counted 20%. Therefore, since there are 10 folks, it's added 2 extra homes. So it's really 30 plus 2 homes. We divide that into the operating our operating expenses, and you come out with the figure I indicated, which reflects, let me add, the 83% of the amenities. I credit Tucker and Chris for having gone over, reviewed those numbers with Robin Halleck, and having in fact agreed. Tucker acknowledged it now, and I appreciate that Robin accurately evaluated and analyzed and came up with the correct number that 83% of our operating budget is attributable to the amenities. Ironically, when I was half joking with Tucker, and I said, you know, Tucker, that $750 annual meeting fee, yeah, you can take that off because you know, you guys don't come to the annual meeting. He now took that as his, you know, approach to a reduction of the 83%. We can always take the 83, the $750 off. Finally, I definitely want to address the issue of a reserve. It's Tucker indicated that one board member said there shouldn't be any initiation fee. I assume that occurred. I wasn't there. But be that as it may, I want to emphasize that we made a substantial concession, and I mean substantial. I've gotten a lot of heat from each Plum members. A substantial concession when we said, or when I said, to be most accurate, we would not impose any capital improvement assessment once we made this agreement. We would not impose it. So the $5,000 goes to a fund, a separate fund from our operating expenses. That's one of the reasons why the administrative costs are going to be fairly substantial. A separate fund, which means that we have to pay out of that fund either capital improvements in the future, or if we decide to lower the cost of our annual fee, then obviously our neighbors will benefit equally to the extent that we will. Finally, of course, the issue is pay the highest versus pay the average. As I said, my average is very different from theirs, and I think mine's totally accurate. And in terms of the highest, I would simply note that market rate homeowners will continue to pay substantially more than our neighbors, and no matter what formula is used, and even if the highest rate is used, the difference between payments by our neighbors and by beach Plum market rate homeowners will still be $1,100 or more. I do think it's fair. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else speaking for on behalf of the application?
Madam Chair, I think Mr. Posner wanted to make a statement.
Ruth Plandowski, I'd like to speak.
Okay, well, who wants to go first?
Let Ruth go.
Okay.
Thanks.
I have a couple of comments, and basically Tucker did put forth a memo last week with some of his points that he outlined today. And I would like to just make a couple comments about those. He mentioned the $300 HOA membership fee, which he brought up in his memo. And actually, that has actually nothing to do with an HOA fee. About 3 years ago, in preparation for thinking that eventually we would be turning the HOA would be turned over from the developer to the residents, we started thinking about that process and felt that we needed some guidance. And we hired a consultant who has done a little bit of work, not a lot, but in preparation to help guide us through this process of setting up our HOA as a resident board instead of the developer. And as such, we had a little backyard party back when backyard parties were allowed, and asked that residents pitch in $300. and we set up a fund, and Howard and I opened a bank account and we collected $300. Had nothing to do with going through the official HOA. It is sitting in a bank account. A little bit of money has been paid out to the consultant. But Tucker Holland is using that as, and saying that that is our HOA fee. It has nothing to do with our HOA fee. Our HOA fees are in the thousands of dollars, and they are billed directly from the HOA to each resident. Nobody has, when one buys a home here, you become a member of the HOA. You can't opt in or opt out. You owe the fees. So the $300 is absolutely nothing to do with the official HOA fee. Mr. Holland would like to suggest that we average out the fees, including the affordable home, the 10 affordable homes. Those 10 families qualified as a program for those homes. And as such, they paid much, much discounted prices for their homes, and they pay much, much discounted prices for the HOA fees. None of the abutters, none of the potential members, neighbor members of the amenities here in Beach Plum qualify for those programs, as far as I know. The 10 family members here in Beach Plum did qualify, and they went through an extensive process to be qualified, and they pay roughly 20% of the amount that market priced homeowners pay. It is absolutely not right that someone is going to roll in the cost that they pay, which is somewhere just over $1,000, versus the $5,000 and $6,000 fees that the market priced homeowners pay. That's all the comments I have at the moment. Maybe we'll come back, but.
Okay, thank you very much. Josh?
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. And I will try and be very brief. I also feel badly that there has been tension and emotion injected in this. I have thought and have operated on the basis that sorting out the terms for offering amenities to neighbors is something that would happen at the end of the project. I've said that to people on many occasions, and here we are at the end of the project. I think it's the appropriate time to do it because there are a range of arrangements that are possible within that condition. As I said in the note that I wrote last week to the zoning board, one group of homeowners might want to maximize revenue from neighbors and have as many of them as possible come and join and pay into the fund, and thereby potentially reduce the amount of money that they, as Beach Plum owners, would be paying. The other end of the spectrum would be we want to keep the amenities as available as possible for the Beach Plum people, and so we want to limit or minimize the amount of neighbor activity, which is where the owners decided they wanted to go. But if I had gone the other way, for example, that could have been a problem. And I think that it's most appropriate for the people who live there over the long term to make these decisions and to do that. So I still feel very comfortable that this was the right time to do it. I'm not going to get bogged down in this question of initiation fee. Howard has showed a lot more flexibility than I think I would have in his situation on that front. the idea that the people at Beach Plum who bought homes haven't made contributions to the initial cost of the construction of the amenities doesn't make any sense. It's not an initiation fee because it comes with their house. But the idea that it didn't cost anything to build the community amenities makes about as much sense as saying the homeowner should have paid separately for the roof or paid separately for the kitchen cabinets. Be that as it may, I had hoped actually, based on talking with Howard, who has taken the lead on trying to work this out, that the neighbors and the Beach Plum owners were going to be able to come to a mutually acceptable resolution. And actually, as Tucker has listed off, they kind of almost have. There's a dispute about this initiation fee that is not huge, you know, come down from $30,000 to $5,000 or to $2,500. That's a big move. To be arguing over whether the heavily subsidized affordable homes should be counted in the average, I think doesn't make sense. But, you know, it's a technical issue that ought to be able to be logically resolved. If the two sides, for whatever reason, can't find their way to something that they can live with themselves, I would simply suggest that both groups select a third party that they can agree to. Let that third party make a binding decision as a binding arbitrator. I'd be happy to pay their costs, reasonable costs. You know, if the zoning board with a whole committee wants to get into the specifics and minutia of this, I feel badly about placing that particular burden in front of you. I had thought that this was something that was going to be able to be resolved between the parties as recently as last Wednesday. And so when it wasn't, here we are. You know, it's a good thing about deadlines. It's forcing us to get this thing resolved one way or another, but it ought to be resolvable. And just in conclusion, I'm sorry that this has gotten somewhat rancorous. I think that, but hopefully we can get it resolved and put this behind us. And there's a lot of really great things going on at Beach Plum Village. It's a beautiful place. Seekanaw is a beautiful place, and I think has benefited from the construction of Beach Plum. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any questions from the board?
I have a question, Lisa.
Yeah, go ahead, Ed.
Hey, Josh, this is directed at you. On page 114 of our, somebody else has their mic on, by the way, because I'm getting a lot of feedback. But
Yeah, me too.
anyway, on page 114 of our packet, on your email of May 11th, about this matter.
Yeah.
You state that the easiest thing for me with only one more home to sell is just to agree to something and be done with it. My question is a little unrelated to all this dispute, but how was it that you were able to sell the last 2 out of the last 3 houses without COs?
So when the CO restriction was put into place, all of the COs except for 2 had already been issued. One of them was for a completed home. So that's the one that actually closed recently, within the last month. There are 2 homes that have not closed, neither of which has a CO, neither of which is finished actually, but one of them is under agreement. It has a purchase and sale agreement.
Is it your intention to sell them without a CO?
No. If we don't have the CO, they won't. One of the conditions of closing is that they get a CO.
So that's been the case on every sale so far there. They've all had COs.
Yes.
Except for one, you said, sold
I don't think
without a
we've sold any house without a CO.
You don't think you have or you haven't?
I know that they all have COs except for these last two, and I don't believe any closing. I mean, it is possible that you can have a closing without a certificate of occupancy if the buyer is willing to accept that, but
Well, I agree with you there, and that's what I'm trying to get to. Did that happen?
no, I don't believe it's happened at all, and I'm not counting on it happening.
Well, forgetting about counting on it, would you do it? Because that was not our agreement. Whether or not the buyer would accept it without a CO, that was not our agreement. The agreement that you made with us right in the room. That you would not sell those houses without with the other issue being resolved.
And I think that, I don't think that I'm going to be able to sell any houses without a CO. I thought that the agreement that we made was that we would not be able to receive a CO for these last two houses, not that we would not be allowed to sell.
I think you know full well that the intention was that you wouldn't receive the CO and therefore couldn't sell them. If you're going to sell them to somebody who doesn't care if there's a CO, I just think that's circumventing the condition.
I'm sorry. I mean, we aren't going to be able, I have no problem agreeing that we will not sell either of the last two homes without a CO.
Okay.
And we didn't, and the agreement did not apply to the one that was sold a month ago.
Excuse me, Paul, you are, if you want to talk, raise your hand so we know to call on you, because there's a great deal of feedback and I keep muting you on purpose so the feedback doesn't prevent us from having problems hearing other people who are speaking. Okay?
Okay, I guess.
I'm sorry, Eleanor, I don't know how to raise my hand. I don't have a button for that for some reason.
Oh, if you go into the participants at the bottom.
Okay, yep.
At the bottom, there's a
I
raise.
see it.
Thing.
Okay. I did actually want to speak to that if I could.
Okay.
Okay.
Are you finished, Ed? Are you done with your question?
I'm finished to the extent that Josh in this meeting has stated he will not sell those houses, the last two remaining houses, without COs.
Right, he will not.
The CO is predicated on him getting the other garage issue taken care of. No, he stated it. I'm good with it.
Okay.
If that's not the truth, I would have a problem with it.
Okay.
Wait a minute. I'm a little confused with that statement. What does this have to do with the garage issue?
Excuse me, can you identify yourself? I can't see who you are.
This is Paul Haverty.
Okay.
I thought when we were talking about the COs, I thought that was pertaining to the agreement to use the facilities.
So did I.
At?
I mean, you can spin it any way, but it had the condition originally was put on when Josh wanted us to release the last, I don't know if it was the last three lots specifically, and there was an ongoing issue with garages that were built on affordable rate lots for the benefit of the market rate units, which was done without our permission, without the modification of the permit. And that's when that condition was put on, that the last three COs would be held in abeyance until that issue was taken care of.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I could respond to that. The condition that I'm talking about is the condition that was placed last fall relating to dealing with the offer of use of amenities under agreeable terms with the neighbors. The issue relating to the garages affected many more COs and was something that I can't remember when that happened, but that was a different circumstance. We've gotten many COs because I think, have addressed, both of those issues are being litigated. And were not identified, in my view, by the zoning board as something that they were going to be holding up other certificates of occupancy over.
I'm gonna have to ask, then I was at a different meeting then, because that's exactly what I remembered. Does anybody else on the board remember it this way?
I remember it exactly as you stated, Ed. To me,
Yeah.
that this, absolutely.
I concur.
Was there a condition in a decision that was put in place that addresses this? Because I've never seen it.
It was, Paul, it wasn't a specific condition in the comp permit, like a modification of the permit. It was an agreement made and letters were put in the files when Josh came to get, whether it's technically a Form J or release of the lots so that he could get permits, so he could do it in a reason, I guess in an efficient manner. We did not want to give him that release, but we did with the condition that no COs would be issued on those last 3 houses.
Is that something that Eleanor can look up?
Yeah, I think it might be in the minutes, and I would need to get Mary Ann Hanley, who's representing us on that issue, involved. I'm sorry. That's not how I recall this at all.
Wow. So Jeff and Kiram have weighed in. Lisa, how do you remember it?
I can't, I remember certainly the discussion. I don't have as memory as the 3 of you. I certainly remember talking about it. I just don't remember how it was left.
Well, I remember it distinctly because I wrote or had the letter written and put in the files.
Oh,
in the building department files.
Yeah.
But it, again, it's there. If Josh is telling me today for whether it's related to the garage issue or whether it's related, it was not related to this homeowners thing. This homeowners thing came up months after, I mean, it basically came up at the very end of this whole process.
Yeah, Ed, I remember a time when there were COs that you wanted to hold up, and until we accomplished some standard, I can't recall exactly what it was, but that we did accomplish that, and we had many lots, if I remember correctly. We're gonna have to just go back and research when all of this happened. I'm sure it's in the minutes. We can reconstruct it, but it's a period of years. This isn't since last fall. The issue of the garages is at least 3 years old.
It's definitely a period of years and nothing's happened. This is the issue.
Well, actually, Mr. Toole, there have been motions for summary decision that have been filed with the Housing Appeals Committee. And I mean, it's been 8 or 9 months, I think, since those motions were filed. We're just waiting for a decision from the Housing Appeals Committee. There's really nothing more that can be done. The process is being followed properly. There's nothing more that Mr.
Paul, I accept that. And I accept the fact that Josh has said he will not sell any houses without COs.
Right, but
whether it's
Ed, I believe that the COs that are being held up right now are related only to the question of the neighbor fee. And so if I'm wrong about that, I'm definitely off base, because that's the way I understand the current situation.
No, I agree with you now that I understand what you're asking. This was before the neighborhood.
Yeah, because the neighborhood thing just came up in January, or something, right? That least
last September it was.
It goes back to last fall.
Last fall, okay. But then we didn't hear it until after the new year once.
Right, there were a series of, extensions or continuances so that the parties could talk and try and work things out.
Yeah, but again, the COs had nothing, we've never discussed COs as it related to this issue. The issue of the homeowners.
I think it came up, I think, Ed, you asked the question at one of the meetings about this facility, about this, just to have Eleanor research it to make sure that, you know, what the status was. I think Tucker, did you want to speak?
Well, it just, I don't know if this helps shed some light, but I think there are two letters included in the packet. One, I think from November 2017, which may be what Mr. Toole was originally referring to, that addresses COs. And then a second letter from, I think more of it was August of last summer, 2019, that also addresses no COs until these matters are resolved. I'm not familiar. I'm not familiar with the garage details, but these letters are in the packet.
You know what page they are?
This refers just to the clubhouse and the amenities.
Page 143, Lisa.
Okay, thank you. Oh yeah, this is the one that Eleanor just emailed. Yeah, I mean, this definitely, it says in August 2017, the applicant submitted a request to modify the Beach Plum Village comprehensive permit. The initial public hearing of this application took place on September 14th, 2017. It was continued and granted action extensions on both the October and November hearings. Given the pending status of this matter, we respectfully request the issuance of certificates of occupancy for the above referenced lots be withheld until the hearing has been closed and the outstanding matters resolved. And I think that was the garages, most definitely, given the date.
But it was also, so the lots that are highlighted here, the lots that were left to be built, did they have anything to do with the garage lots?
Specifically for the garages? You mean the garage lots that we were discussing?
Correct. Were the garage units, were the garages on any of those lots, or are they completely separate lots?
They're separate, Paul. The garages were built
On affordable lots.
long before the garages were built on other lots.
Yep,
And it came
understood.
to our attention that this was being done without permission, again, without a modification. And at the same time, Mr. Posner wanted a release on his remaining lots so he could permit them and actually start to construct them and ultimately sell them. But the agreement at the time was that the COs would be withheld.
Well,
And I presume that,
taken care
I
of.
think that one actually relates to releasing the lots so that I could get building permits. And all of the lots have been released, and we've got building permits or COs on all 40 lots.
You have building permits, you don't have COs.
Not COs we don't have on the last two.
Right, and the letter specifically says, though, given the pending status of this matter, respectfully request the issuance of certificate of occupancies for the above referenced lots, including the last two on Woodlily, be withheld until the hearing has been closed and the outstanding matters resolved.
Yeah.
So.
and I don't want to say what was in Josh's mind at the time that this occurred, because I was not representing him at the time. However, I think it's fair to say that he was not contemplating that 3 years later, this matter would still remain unresolved and that he would be stuck holding lots unable to get occupancy permits related lots.
Well, I disagree with you, Paul. I mean, the agreement was made knowing full well that this was a contentious situation. And it has been, I'm not saying every issue that has come up, but many have taken a long time to resolve. And this was purely, a function of, well, you should not be able to leave this issue behind you by selling all the houses. So Mr. Josh definitely agreed to it at the meeting.
And again, I wasn't there. I wasn't part of that process, so I really can't speak to it.
But again, it's in the minutes. Everybody's heard it. Josh has said he will not sell the remaining 2 houses without COs, and they shouldn't be issued COs.
I've only agreed until the amenity and neighbor payment issue is resolved. I have not agreed that I won't ask for or try to get COs until the garage matter, which has gone on forever, and I have no control over how long the courts are going to take.
Well, you may not like it now, but you agreed to it then, and knows that whenever that was in November of 17. And
I don't believe I did.
Go back through the minutes and the tape. And if that's the case, then I'm not going to vote on or agree to move forward with the homeowners association, with this matter. Because I feel like if you're saying that's the only thing that's precluding you from getting COs, I don't think that's.
I don't agree with that either. I think that both of these matters have to be addressed before I'm willing to sign off on any additional COs.
I also think because it was part of the comprehensive permit, that not having you involved, Mr. Posner, doesn't seem fair a bit. I mean, it was understood in I didn't sit on the initial comprehensive permit, but it's clearly written in there that it's the responsibility of the developer to offer this to the neighbors.
Can I speak to that for a moment? I mean, Josh's interest and mine may be very different in lots of ways, but on this, they're similar. I've said to him, look, you want to be the bad guy and agree with the neighbors, anything you want that'll get you approval, you have the right to do that. And he's always deferred to the homeowner. So you can tar him with other brushes that are not my problem, but I would say not this one.
Lisa, I recognize that it's our responsibility to make this happen. And we're doing the best we can to do that.
Okay, I just thought that earlier you had mentioned that, or somebody mentioned that you were stepping out of the conversation.
No,
the homeowners that were handling this.
Well, I'm asking that they get involved and try and work out terms that are acceptable to them, and that basically within reason, I would defer to the terms that they work out as much as possible. I've now taken a further step, which is to say, let's take the few issues that are in dispute here, get the 2 sides to select a fair third party who can listen to everybody, and if they can't get them to mutually agree, make a decision themselves about what the fee will be, what the initiation fee will be, and be done with it. And we can be off and running on the question of offering the amenities to the neighbors. Sounds like we've got some history to reconstruct relating to the garages, because I remember it very differently from Ed. But it's going to be in the minutes. It's going to be in the documentation.
Okay, so we'll do some research on that. Any other thoughts of comments on the issue that we're here to discuss today?
Yeah, Lisa, I have some comments
Great.
about the HOA for fees. I've gone back and looked at the documents, and it's good to see you've moved this far along in the past 6 months. You know, with regard to the initiation fee, you know, I don't think there should be one in there. And I say this because the homeowners need to realize that this structure was put in place in 2006, not when you bought your property or when someone else buys a property. And I think that this would have been addressed there. And the way the document reads, that the homeowners have access to the facility with using a comparable fee structure.
Right.
Since there was no initiation fee to the other homeowners, I don't think it's appropriate to charge the neighbors that fee. It should not be, none of this should be a windfall to the homeowners. And the initiation fee is a windfall to them. And in the same way, you know, I know you're caught up on the amounts, but it really should be looked at, your negotiation should be looked at as whatever the pro rata share is, not an amount. So the pro rata share should be similar to what the homeowners are paying, probably reduced by some factor because you don't have the full access similar to homeowners, but that's something right that you can negotiate. But I think it's an important way to frame this, is that this was all agreed to in 2006 and confirmed in 2008. It's not something that gets renegotiated every time a new homeowner comes in. You know, Mr. Edelman sells his house, the new homeowner can't come in and say, you know, I didn't know about this. And, you know, unfortunately, this is how these 40B structures work. And unfortunately, we're tethered to this, you know, dealing with these manners, and hopefully we don't have to deal with a lot of the minutia in the HOA. But this to me is a major comprehensive permit issue, and we need to stay involved. And at least this is my interpretation of how the structure was set up. And it is somewhat vague. And unfortunately, no one contemplated this when it was agreed to back in 2006. But to me, it's pretty clear that the adjoining neighbors should be assessed the same way the homeowners are, in a pro rata share basis on whatever fees are associated with those amenities. Simple as that. They're not members of the HOA. They don't pay an initiation fee. The homeowners association doesn't get a windfall. And that's the way it's structured. And, you know, unfortunately, these homeowners were not involved in this initial negotiation, but it's probably what happened. Josh can probably recall. There was some give and take that went on back then, and not many of us were involved in this. But that's my reading. That's how I view this whole thing.
Thank you, Jim.
I agree with you, Jim. I think the fee should only be a prorated, portion of the homeowner fees. I absolutely no initiation. That was never contemplated by the developer. That was never contemplated by the homeowners who negotiated that settlement with the developer so he could get his comprehensive permit. This was an agreement between the developer and some abutters. It had nothing to do with the homeowners association. And frankly, I don't think it has anything to do with the homeowners association now. I think it should be done between Josh and the people that he made the agreement with 15 years ago.
It's Howard. I'd just like to point out that I don't agree with Jim's comment that it's a windfall for the homeowners, that whatever initiation fee there would be, whether it's $1 or $100,000, will go to the benefit of all users of the amenities. Because as I specifically said, it would go either into a capital reserve fund for new amenities or replacement amenities, or to reduce the annual fee for everybody, because theirs will be a percentage of ours.
One comment about that. With what you're saying, it makes sense. And I think if you all were part of the development in 2006, that would make sense. You want to capitalize these things. you're going to have additional uses, right? 10 upwards of 10 additional families, but that wasn't the agreement. And to suddenly now change the framework, to me, just doesn't make sense or isn't appropriate. One other piece that probably down the road, and maybe Mr. Haverty can comment on this, but I see that there's an agreement, and if we do come to agreement, it's going to be with the existing homeowners and homeowners association. But does this need to be in the form of an amendment to the comprehensive permit? You know, this needs to run with the land of the adjoining homeowner. So something needs to go of record. And I want you to be thinking of that. I'm not sure what the answer is. You know, is this a license? Is it an easement, an impertinent easement? I'm not even sure. This could be a law school question.
Yeah,
But,
I'm a lawyer and I have no idea, Jim.
But I want to protect those adjoining homeowners. That's all, to make sure that,
Fair enough.
that their successors have the rights. That's all.
Fair enough.
So Madam Chair, through you, this is Paul Haverty again. I think that's a fair question, and it gets to something that I wanted to go over, which is this condition that is contained in this decision is not a condition that's enforceable under existing case law. The decision was issued in 2006. In 2010, the Supreme Judicial Court actually issued a decision that clarified the types of conditions that local boards are allowed to impose on comprehensive permits. Were it not for the fact that this had gone to court and had been subject to a settlement agreement with the courts, my client simply could have requested a modification as an unenforceable condition and asked it to be eliminated. Ultimately, if the parties are unable to reach any kind of an agreement as to how this is to be interpreted, you're going to wind up back in the courts. And I don't think that's beneficial to anybody, which is why I think that the suggestion that Josh made is really the way to go here. I agree that there is some uncertainty in the language that's in the decision. And I think sending this to an arbitrator for binding arbitration is really the way to go here. I think that the agreement that's been drafted so far gets the parties fairly close. So there's not a lot that would really need to go into that arbitration. But once that occurs, that will also address the issue of how it gets enforced moving forward. This is going to be a decision that was made pursuant to a binding arbitration, and it would be enforceable. So I think that that is really the best approach for all the parties. And it also helps get the board out of the position of having to micromanage the details of the homeowners association, which unfortunately you've been put in this position that you shouldn't have been put in to begin with.
Well, I think as a board, we feel responsibility to make sure that the comprehensive permits are adhered to, because I didn't sit on this again, but a lot of negotiations went into getting the comprehensive permit due to neighbors' concerns, and a lot of time was put into it. So I think that that's why, although I hear your point, I think that's why, we feel, or some of the members feel strongly about, how this should be handled and what fees are appropriate and such. Does anybody want to comment, any board members want to comment on Paul's thoughts?
My thought, Lisa, is that if we're going to go down that type of road, we should be represented by town council as, at this point.
Get some opinions.
Yeah.
Eleanor?
I did put in a request for legal services for this right before COVID happened, and I did what I was supposed to do, but I think it fell through the cracks. So I sent an email following up saying, did this get properly submitted? Because I never did hear back. So
would we want to, should we think about continuing this until we can do research on the first issue with the garages? And getting some legal counsel from town council as a board?
It works for me if the proposal is to, do we fundamentally agree with the notion of arbitration? I mean, to me personally, it seems insane that we can't come to some agreement here at this point, but
I agree.
I'm happy to go the arbitration route. But again, I think we should be represented at this point. I think we should be represented on both of those questions, by the way.
Right. Tucker?
I mean, the object of what we're just trying to speak for the neighbors to do here is not to add to your guys' plate. The garage thing is totally separate. You know, we can't speak to that. But I mean, certainly willing to have another conversation with Howard and Chris following today's discussion. I think the board's comments, and maybe there's some more, but they've been helpful from my perspective. And we can, you know, see if there's something that isn't a middle ground that works before going to the arbitration standpoint. So I just wanted to offer that up.
It's fine with me.
Okay, thank you.
If I could say, I would defer to Howard and Tucker, but if it's helpful for me to be there to say, come on, guys, let's see if we can find something, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, thank you.
And perhaps that adheres to what you're saying, Lisa, in terms of it's still the developer's responsibility, which I accept.
Josh, I think that if the other parties wanted you to be there, I think it would be your obligation to be there and try and work this out.
Yeah.
Because it's frankly, it's something you created, so.
Albeit a long time ago, I guess, but okay. So does that mean that we just continue this matter until the next hearing then? You guys have some time to talk about things. We can do some research on the garage issue, or is that it's a separate issue where it's the same issue in that it's not tied to this particular question, Ed, but I know that you brought it up as something that you're concerned with in terms of the sale of those other two houses going through without that resolved. So do we need to bring that up separately?
It's definitely a concern of mine, especially when Josh in his email says I only have one more house to sell. And especially when he tells me he won't sell them without COs.
Which I think I'm pretty sure I recall Josh saying at the beginning of this meeting when he spoke that he sold one of those houses without a CO.
Not without it. He said no.
Yeah. But he said it hasn't closed yet.
Yeah, I've signed many purchase and sale agreements on houses without COs, where a condition of closing is getting a CO.
So none of those units that have sold right now, for every one of those units that have sold right now, they all have valid COs.
Correct.
And had them when they closed. I mean, when you closed.
I believe so. I'm sorry, I was just getting hung up on a technical issue of theoretically you can sell a house without a CO, then the buyer has to get the CO. But every single one of my houses, people only want to buy it after it's clear that it's been issued a certificate of occupancy by the town.
Generally, you won't be able to get financing to close on the purchase without a valid CO having been issued.
Well, a cash buyer might buy it
Exactly.
without the CO. But what I'm hearing from Josh repeatedly is that he did not sell any houses without a CO.
Well, Ed, life is complicated. I'm remembering back to one of our other issues that was that we had to sort through. If you remember, we sold a lot that then Jamie at Cottage and Castle built and sold. And so that was a lot that was actually sold without a CO. Didn't have a house either.
I recall that, and we dealt with that issue.
We dealt with that. But just
that's not the
your
issue.
question of have I ever sold one without a CO? That's one.
Okay. I'm not talking about that.
Right. I know you're not. I just,
Lot 41.
lot 41 is,
Oh,
You
it was
sold
sold
it-
construction.
sold-
it says.
2016 and the CO was issued 6 months later. Page 234 of the packet.
yeah, actually, that's right. There are some homes, now that I remember it, there were some deal structures where we sold, that it was not a purchase and sale agreement with a closing at the completion. It was a sale of a lot with a set of plans and a contract where we built the house. We did that a number of times. It has a CO now, but it didn't have one when it was closed. Didn't have a house when it was closed either.
But the intention of these last two is that you're building them, they will be bought, sold, they will be bought, completed and CO'd.
Yeah, and the only house that could be built on that lot was an approved house in the permit. But that was a transaction structure that was allowed and that we used on occasion.
I'm much more concerned with the lot. And so if you're telling me there, two of them, one was sold with a CO.
No.
And two are pending.
Yeah. Right. There.
Fine.
Okay, Paul has his hand up.
That was from before. I actually wound up unmuting myself. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Okay. Sorry, you needed help and I didn't pay attention to you.
This is a difficult format. I perfectly understand.
No question. Okay. So do we want to make some sort of a motion to continue? To allow the neighbors to get together again after the comments that were made today? Does anybody want to make any further comments? Any members of the board want to say anything else?
No, I'll make that motion to continue.
Thank you, Jim.
The June 11th?
Yeah, the next meeting, the June meeting.
Is that a second? Ed?
Motion.
Okay. Okay, then I have to do the roll call to vote. I'll start with myself. Aye. Jim?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Karam?
Aye.
Mark Poor?
Aye.
Michael Amara?
I'm not sitting.
Oh, you're not sitting. I'm sorry. You're just enjoying the weather. Okay. I think that's, and Ed, sorry, Ed. I was going to call you admin because you're not listed. Your name's not listed. I forget you're on.
I don't know what happened with that. Aye.
Okay.
Can you repeat the date of the next meeting again, please? Sorry.
June 11th.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hopefully we won't be Zooming.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you all. Thank you for your time. I
Thank you.
appreciate it. Nice to meet you.
So Eleanor?
You need a script, don't you? Did you see the script I sent
I
to
don't
close the meeting?
think so. You sent it to me?
It went to all of you,
Okay, let me pull it up.
but you do a roll call to close the meeting out. You just do a roll call.
Oh, okay. So I don't have to say anything specific.
Oops,
Somebody can
hold on.
make a motion. Second it.
I will second that.
Okay. So roll call to close the meeting. Be Ed? Mark?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
And myself, aye. Did I get you, Jeff?
Yep. You
Okay.
missed Karen, maybe.
Oh, Karam, sorry. Karam, are you good to close the hearing, to close the meeting?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All those in favor? Oh, we already did that.
Boy,
We're leaving. It's very confusing.
I'm telling you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.